Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The story I'm about to tell you is true. It began Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. The day broke clear and peaceful on beautiful Oahu Island. The sweet fragrance of hibiscus and bird of paradise filled the warm air. It was nearing 7:55 Hawaii time. Navy veteran water tender second class Edgar David Gross, age 40, of the Carriger community, was on duty. He was down in the engine room tending one of the 12 oil-fired burners that powered the mighty battleship USS Oklahoma. She rode anchor on Battleship Row together with 7 other battleships in the peaceful waters of Pearl Harbor. The youngest of 10 children of sharecroppers George and Susan Gross, Edgar's opportunities were very limited. Roads through the hills and hollows of West Limestone weren't much better than gravel pig trails. There was no electricity, no indoor plumbing. Life was hard and about to get harder. Planting and chopping cotton and picking on the hard scrabble land barely provided a subsistence living. Join the Navy and see the world, said the poster. And that's what he did. In 1922, he enlisted at age 21. 7 years later, on a fine spring day in May of 1929, he and Annie Pearl Marbett, a striking brunette, were married by probate Judge McConnell here in Limestone County at the courthouse. Annie Pearl was 19, Edgar was 28. They set out to make a living in the Navy. Annie Pearl was one of 12 children of Thomas and Fannie Marbett of the Elkmont community. There were long periods of separation while Edgar was at sea, and she not only missed him, but she missed her large family of 8 brothers and 3 sisters. Edgar had served 17 years in the Navy, much of that on the Oklahoma. He left the Navy in 1939, then volunteered for the reserves in 1941. Japan had already invaded Manchuria and China. War clouds were gathering over America. As Gross went about tending the huge boilers, he no doubt thought about Annie Pearl back in sunny Long Beach, California. It was nearing 9:55 a.m. in California, and he guessed that she was probably getting ready to go to church. Meanwhile, on that fateful Sunday morning, 4,300 miles away in the rolling hills of West Limestone, his folks were probably at church where worship services were concluding. Most folks back home had killed hogs in late November when the weather was just right, not too cold to freeze the meat and not too warm to spoil it. If he had his guess, his mama would probably have plenty of fresh tenderloin and sausage on the big family table with biscuits and cow butter. Oh, to be home. Home. What a beautiful word that is. At the moment, America was at peace, but the clock was ticking. Down in the bowels of Oklahoma, Gross couldn't hear the roar of approaching airplanes. At 11:55 a.m. Athens time, the Japanese Empire suddenly, unexpectedly, and without warning attacked Pearl Harbor. They struck in 2 waves consisting of 423 airplanes. The Oklahoma was hit by 9 torpedoes. Within 20 minutes, she had swung over and capsized. All 8 battleships were hit. The Arizona was a total loss. 3 cruisers and 3 destroyers were sunk. 188 aircraft were destroyed, most of them on the ground. More than 24 American servicemen were killed and approximately 1,100 were wounded. That day, they made America bleed. On the capsized Oklahoma, sailors set about with blowtorches, cutting open the thick steel hull to rescue the trapped sailors. 32 were saved, 429 perished. 35 bodies were removed, identified, and sent home for burial. Edgar Gross was not among them. Folks in Limestone County heard the terrible news when they turned on their battery-powered radios shortly after lunch. The program was interrupted by an emergency broadcast from New York. It went like this. We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air. President Roosevelt has just announced. We take you now to Washington. And that's how it began for folks back in Limestone County. They were frightened, and rightly so. Many had sons and brothers in the Navy at Pearl Harbor. The world was about to change. What did the future hold for America? And where was this place called Pearl Harbor? The following day, President Roosevelt appeared before a joint session of Congress proclaiming that December 7th, 1941 was a date that will live in infamy and called for a declaration of war. Japan had awakened a sleeping giant. Remember Pearl Harbor became the battle cry. Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S. 4 days later. 2 weeks following the attack, Annie Pearl at Long Beach received a telegram, and it said this: "The Navy Department regrets to inform you that your husband, Edgar David Gross, is missing." His body wasn't found. Shortly after Christmas, Annie Pearl returned to Limestone County, the first war veteran of the county. On February 14, 1942, instead of receiving a Valentine card, she received a wire and letter from the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox. It has been officially declared he lost his life in the service of his country on December 7, 1941, read the letter. It was official. Edgar Gross was the first Limestonian to lose his life at Pearl Harbor. The death of Edgar Gross was a rallying cry for his Marbett brothers-in-law. 6 sons of Thomas and Fanny Marbett, along with their son-in-law, Dan Koblenz, joined the armed forces to help stamp this iniquity from the face of the earth. 4 went in the Army and 3 in the Navy. The Marbett family holds the record of sending more sons to fight in World War II than any other family in Limestone County. In 1943, the Oklahoma was righted, and the remains of the 388 unidentified sailors and Marines were removed and buried in mass graves labeled unknowns in the National Memorial Cemetery overlooking Honolulu. And there they remain, moldering in the earth, known only to God. The Oklahoma was sold for salvage in 1946, and while being towed to San Francisco in 47, she sunk during a storm. Her exact resting place is unknown to this day. Following the war, Annie Pearl and Milton Leon Pope, age 43, of Elkmont, were married in Madison County in 1948. Leon died in 92. Annie Pearl spent her final days in a nursing home and died in 1997 at age 86. Both are buried side by side in Roselawn Cemetery in Athens. Edgar Gross was a fading memory, one of 417,000 Americans that died during World War II, a war to save our democracy and to preserve our freedom. No funeral service was held, no bugler blew taps, no stone to mark his grave, no resting place among his kin. Then something remarkable occurred. DNA was perfected. In 2011, Stephen Gross, an award-winning photographer at the Anniston Star and great-nephew of Edgar Gross, received a call from a lady at the Department of Defense. "Have you ever heard the name Edgar David Gross?" she asked. "Yes, he was my uncle." DNA was provided, and on September 7th last year, he received a call from the Department of Defense. "We have good news," she said. "Your uncle is coming home." And in fact, he has. His remains arrived at the Huntsville Airport Friday and was escorted by Patriot Guard riders to Limestone Chapel. At noon today, his remains will pass by here on the way to Cherry Grove Baptist Church for funeral services at 2 p.m. Afterwards, a horse-drawn caisson will carry the body to nearby Evans Cemetery for military burial. Finally, after 78 years, Edgar Gross has come home to the rolling hills of West Limestone, and his bones will be laid to rest among his people in the soil that he tried as a youth.
I received a phone call on November the 4th, 2011 from D.D. King, who is a contracted genealogist for the Navy POW MIA department, and asked me if I knew who Edgar David Gross was. I told her, of course I did, it was my uncle, and she screamed, "I found you, I found you, I finally found you." I said, "If I'd known you'd been looking for me, I would have called you." And we got a big laugh about it, and she explained to me that she's been looking for a member of the Gross family for several months, 6 to 9 months, and I was the first bite, and the ball started rolling from that day. Words can't express what this means to me and my family. This is closure for us finally after almost 78 years. It's been a dream of my parents and grandparents that they would finally be able to see Uncle Ed come home. While they didn't, sadly, they didn't live to see it. We are living their dream, which is a glorious thing. The Athens community just came out with open arms. They don't know us, didn't know Ed, but they have treated us like their friends, family, and didn't know us from Adam's house cat. And they're just tremendous folks here. They've helped us without measure. You can't put a price tag on what they've done. Everybody has been super wonderful to us, and I know why he's from here. This is just a great place, and it's living proof that how they treated us, and the whole family is appreciative, and what's happened, and we have to pinch ourselves actually that it's really happening. Uncle Ed was real. Uncle Ed wasn't just a name in a history book or a name on a page in somebody's Bible. Uncle Ed was real. He was born and raised here in Athens, Alabama. He went to school in Athens. He went to church in Athens. He worked these fields surrounding this church. He breathed the very air we're breathing right now. He's home. Today brings closure for this family. No longer will we have to worry and wonder, is he coming home? When is he coming home? Are they going to find him? I hope it's in my lifetime. I can't tell you how many times I heard my parents and grandparents say, I hope and pray to live to see the day that Uncle Ed comes home. Hope and pray to live to see the day. Today is that day. We as a family are living our parents' and grandparents' dreams. And we're blessed. We are so blessed. We're living their dream. While young children, we were told Uncle Ed's story to never give up, never quit fighting for him to come home. One day he would, and he is. He's here. If there are any tears shed today, let them be tears of joy and celebration. There's a lot of members of the Gross family who passed on since Uncle Ed was killed. Sadly, one of those being Carolyn Warren, the original mitochondrial DNA submitter. She passed away 4 years ago this month, and she's not here. Not here in person. She's not sitting out there, but I know she's here just as I know I'm here and you're here. She is here. She's looking down on us, smiling and celebrating right alongside Uncle Ed's wife, Annie Pearl, his mother and father, my great-grandparents, George and Susan Gross, his brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, nephews and nieces, everyone who passed on before Uncle Ed and after him are celebrating with us today. Today marks the third and final burial for Uncle Ed. No longer is he going to be in a grave marked as an unknown. While God always knew where Uncle Ed was buried, or where he was, from this day forward and for generations to come, everyone is going to know where Uncle Ed is buried. At Evans Cemetery, next to his father George, is a beautiful white marble headstone that reads in part, Edgar D. Gross, killed in action, USS Oklahoma. To put his death and burial in perspective, he died under a 48-star flag. He's being buried under a 50-star flag. 77 years, 5 months, and 20 days. He's finally home. Welcome home, Uncle Ed. We love you. We've missed you. Welcome home.